Hi everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Jingle All the Way with Jules. We're going to be creating the ideal Christmas feast with Thermomix over the next 4 weeks, and today we're going to start with canapes and cocktails, because there can be no better way to start the festive season and your festive feast than with some festive tipples and some delicious snacks to tide you over until the turkey is ready. Helping me today will be my own little helper all the way from the North Pole. This is Rhiannon.
Hello everyone.
And she will be popping in and out, carrying trays and tasting things as we go along. Thank you. So first on the menu today is a peppermintini, which sounds innocent enough, but is incredibly strong and incredibly delicious. We're going to start out by blitzing our candy canes, which I've got over here. Pro tip, learning from experience, is that you need to make sure that your mixing bowl is really dry before you blitz up these candy canes. Otherwise, you get kind of sticky, caramelized mess. So make sure they're very dry, your mixing bowl is dry, and that's how you'll get a nice even crumb. So those are good. We should have a nice fine candy cane crumb. Thank goodness we do. And this is going to be dusted around the rim of our martini glasses. So get a nice big flat plate and actually make sure you spread this over the surface area quite widely, because the rim of your martini glass is obviously quite wide. And then we're going to go straight in with our milk chocolate. You're going to want 60 grams of this. And I will say in advance, I was very generous with my chocolate the first time I did this, and they did dribble a bit down the sides, but actually I think that adds an appeal, and who can have too much chocolate on the rim of their martini glass, really? So we're going to blitz this for 5 seconds on speed 7. And then we're going to melt it for 1 minute, 50 degrees, speed 2. You could also use dark chocolate for this if you wanted to, or even white chocolate, but always be careful with white chocolate because it is slightly more temperamental. I've got my martini glasses ready to go, and then the concept is we're going to spill out our lovely melted chocolate on this plate, dip the glass in it, swish it around a bit, drip it down, and then into the candy cane. So a nice festive variation on your salted martini glass rim. Right, and for this you're going to want to have some ice ready to go in the freezer. I've got some really festive ice cubes, because we're going to just swish the mixture around once we add in the alcohol and the peppermint extract, and then strain it through our simmering basket straight into the glasses. So we've got a lovely chilled white chocolate peppermint cocktail ready to go. After this, we're going to be moving on to the mulled wine bellini, which is delicious and is actually a lovely gift to give. A Thermomix it yourself Christmas gift, which I'll talk about a bit more later. But for now, check our chocolate. Almost ready to go. It's always worthwhile to keep an eye on chocolate when it's melting, because it can seize quite suddenly. That is perfect. So out onto the plate. There's something so satisfying about melted chocolate drizzling out of a bowl. And you do actually want to work quite fast here, because the chocolate will start to solidify as soon as it hits the plate, unless you're very clever and in advance warm your plate up first. So I'm swooshing the plate around to get the white chocolate, the milk chocolate rather. Already thinking of the white chocolate liqueur in front of me. And if you think I'm being a bit pedantic about this, it's because the rim of this martini glass is a lot wider than I thought. So, martini glass directly into the chocolate. Give that a little swirl and hold it up. There we go, exactly like that. And then straight into our candy cane dust. And there we go, beautifully dusted all over with festive cheer. And second glass. There is a lot of extra chocolate in this recipe unless you're making 6 or 7 of these cocktails. So Rhiannon might be in the background devouring the leftovers. So we can move those out the way. And now it's time for our festive liqueurs. So 1 second. So get a fresh mixing bowl, or else you could obviously just rinse out your existing mixing bowl. And then we're going to go in with 120 grams of vanilla vodka, which is plenty, I have to say. And 220 grams of white chocolate liqueur. I think you can get this on pretty much any online grocery store or even through Amazon, but I had not previously encountered it before making this cocktail, and it's a revelation. You can hear it pouring away because 220 grams needs to get in here. There we go. And 250 grams of my festive ice cubes, your potentially normal ice cubes, going in. So this is the part where if you had one of those really lovely old-fashioned cocktail shakers, you'd be muddling everything together. But that's what your Thermomix is for. I've got Christmas trees, gingerbread men. My colleague was decidedly unimpressed with the amount of festive equipment I insisted on getting for this, but I'm all about going all out at Christmas, as you can see by the decorations behind me. Right, so get your ice in, and then finally, half a teaspoon of peppermint extract. Again, easily available at most grocery stores. I think you could experiment a bit with this though, and you could use any kind of berry extract. Raspberry would be really nice in this. And going straight in. It is quite strong, so resist the urge to embellish on that amount. And now a gentle stir for 10 seconds on speed 1. Glass is ready to go. And right, and we're ready to pour. So mixing bowl lid off, and in place of that, pop on your simmering basket. Hold your simmering basket in place with your spatula and pour. This does look deceptively like milk, so I suppose if you wanted to give Santa a really jolly start to his evening, instead of milk and cookies, you could do a peppermintini and cookies. And I'm now going to invite Nikki and Rhiannon onto the camera to give this a try, because I'm going to be handling a sharp knife soon, and I really shouldn't drink anything this strong. I think this is the best chocolate. This is the best part, definitely. Watch their faces. Cheers. Cheers. Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas. How was it?
Really good. That was really good.
Yeah.
Get like the supplement through afterwards.
You guys can go off and finish those. I'll move on to the next recipe. Rightio, let's go on to the mulled wine bellini. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is a lovely recipe to make if you are still kind of a little bit muddled about what you might want to give everyone for their Christmas stocking filler, or just a little gift for a neighbor or friend. And there are so many variations of this you can do, because on Cookie Do, we have a collection called Gifts, and it is as simple as it sounds. It's a collection of really lovely festive treats that you can make in your Thermomix and give out to friends and family. the base is a mulled wine syrup. Who doesn't like a lovely glass of mulled wine on a cold winter's evening, especially as it really is starting to get cold now. Forecast to snow next week, apparently. So let's get straight into it. Red wine, pretty much a whole bottle of it, 500 grams to be exact. So it does actually leave just enough for a little glass on the side, cook's perks. There you go. And caster sugar. We're going to have 125 grams of that. Just to cut through the full body depth of the wine. And I'm going to arrange our spices here so you can see what we've got. So, 1 teaspoon of honey. Doing that by eye, I'll be honest with you, but it's about a teaspoon. And then we're going to get 2 cinnamon sticks. And I cannot stress enough that it really is worthwhile to get good cinnamon sticks. There's nothing worse than cinnamon sticks that smell like a bit of old cardboard. So make sure they're lovely and fragrant. They have to have that Christmas smell, otherwise don't proceed. So 2 of those broken in half. And cloves. Well, this is star anise. 2 star anise, 5 cloves. Honestly, all of these spices just smell like Christmas to me. Another really lovely thing to do in terms of mulled wine is you can just bundle up all of these spices in a little bit of linen cloth and tie them with a bow, tie them around the neck of your wine bottle, and you're giving someone a hamper ready to make their own mulled wine. But this mulled wine syrup, I have to say, would be my preference as a gift to make or to receive. About 5 or 6 peppercorns, black peppercorns going in there. And I think we have half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg. Nutmeg is quite a strong flavor, so I would not be tempted to add more than that. The juice of 1 orange and the peelings of zest of 1 orange. Of course, a really good substitution here would be clementines, another flavor of Christmas, or a blood orange, but obviously that's more of a summer. But who says you can't have mulled wine, bellinis in summer? Maybe not mulled wine, but right. And lid on, and this is technically supposed to simmer away, no measuring cup, simmering basket in place of measuring cup. It should simmer away for 30 minutes, but obviously we're a bit short on time, so we're going to be doing it for 10 minutes, and then I'll pass it over to Santa's helper to finish it off in the back. And I will do the classic thing of bringing one out that I made earlier. So that is going to be 30 minutes on Varoma speed 0.5. And as this starts to reduce, the smell of Christmas is going to permeate your entire house. Just the mulled wine stewing away while you're in the background, drinking your peppermintini, probably eating a canape. That's the life. So, for now, moving again on to the best part, or for Nikki and Rhiannon, not necessarily for me. You're going to need your champagne flutes. My mulled wine syrup that I made yesterday. And what I was saying earlier was that you can make this mulled wine syrup, decant it into little bottles with corks, put a bow on with a gift tag explaining how to use it, maybe the recipe for this exact bellini, and it will keep in the fridge for up to a week. So you probably only need about a teaspoon. As you can see, it's actually quite thick because it does reduce down. So the flavor is strong, which you want. And now the fun job of popping a champagne bottle on camera. Everyone's watching and there's no pressure at all. But that was a lot smoother than expected. So a beautifully ruby coloured festive cocktail. Okay, ladies, back on for another taste test. Ooh, close for that one. This bottle of champagne will have to be drunk at some point.
Well, thank you, Jules.
You're so welcome.
Cheers. It literally tastes of Christmas.
It does, right?
Oh, it does.
Like, yeah.
So warm. Yeah.
We're certainly starting on a jolly note here at Thermomix.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Fantastic. And now that our drinking on an empty stomach has begun, we're going to go straight on to making our delicious Christmas canapes, starting with some parsnip blinis with Stilton and honey walnuts. And for those of you who might have been eyeing up my festive Thermomix apron and my very festive Thermomix cup, you will be able to buy these yourself from Tuesday on our e-store. Just the thing you need to get you into the spirit. So, move that out of the way. Right, parsnip blinis. These are great because they're obviously vegetarian, but they can also be made vegan should you want to. They're gluten-free because we're using rice flour instead of plain flour. And they are deceptively easy to make. So we're starting out. I'm going to be doing a half recipe today just because we're short on time. And this is definitely something you can do yourselves, halving the recipe. For those of us having a smaller Christmas this year than in previous years, for 2 or 3 of you, or 4 even, you can halve this recipe comfortably and have plenty of canapes to go around. So, peeling my parsnip. You need 400 grams for the full recipe, so I'm aiming for about 200 grams. 2 large parsnips would be about 300 grams, so you can always do 2 large, 1 small, and you should be good to go. Take off the woody ends. A really good tip for if you're going to be roasting parsnips for your Christmas dinner is to remove the core. It ensures that you get a lovely even roast without that kind of hard bite in the center of the parsnip. So, just into thick coins at this stage. The thicker ones can be cut into 4 if you want a nice even cooking. So, parsnips in. And then we're going to go straight in with our butter and our oil. So we're doing 50 grams of butter. Christmas is not the time to skimp on flavor, and fat is flavor. So be generous with your butter and your oil and everything else. Obviously, halving the recipe, that's going to be 25 butter and 25 oil. Great. We're not seasoning at this stage intentionally because there's going to be quite a lot of seasoning later on, so don't be tempted to whack in the salt now. Rightio. So, technically, you would be cooking this for 20 minutes, but because we're halving the recipe, and because I really just want to show you the process, I'm just going to do 5, and then I'll finish it off later. Don't worry, there's no wasting in this kitchen. 5 minutes, 100 degrees, speed, spoon, nice and slow. But for our purposes, I'm going to bring out a parsnip mixture that I made earlier. And at this stage, I am going to pass off our delicious Christmas mulled wine syrup, which is smelling heavenly, to Rhiannon. And I'm going to get a clean bowl out to continue. And a couple of bowls. Right. So, This is my parsnip puree, which I cooked earlier today. Essentially, you cook your parsnip until it's lovely and soft, and then you blitz it up into a puree. If when you check on it after blitzing, you feel like it's still a bit grainy, still a bit lumpy, blitz it again for a few more seconds until you get quite a smooth texture. Not 100% smooth, but quite smooth. So it should look a bit like this. This has obviously been in the fridge all day, so it's solidified a bit, which you do want, but it will be quite liquid when you finish cooking it. So that's going to go on the side for now. And first we're going to insert our butterfly whisk. And we're going to whisk some egg whites. But first of all, I do just want to make sure I've got a very dry, clean bowl for egg whites. Any kind of liquid or residue in the bowl will mean that your egg whites won't whip up properly. So definitely something to keep an eye out for if you are rinsing your bowl in between recipes and moving on to the next one like I am now. So butterfly whisk in and onto separating our eggs. I have a spare egg. My ex-head chef always was disparaging of the fact that I used to just very confidently assume that I would get things right and I never had spares, so I've learned the hard way to always have an extra. So we're going to use the yolks and the whites for this. So whites into the bowl, yolks into their own little bowl on the side for now. And again, as I said, I'm halving the recipe, but if you were doing the full recipe, you would be doing 2 whites and 2 yolks. So I've just got 1 white in there for now. Butterfly whisk in, egg whites in, and we're looking for soft peaks here. So I'm going to go for about 30 seconds, I think, on speed 3.5, and then I'll check on it. Always do less than you think, because you can always take it further, but you can't recover once you've taken them too far. So that's going to go ahead. And then what we're going to do is remove those into their own bowl, which I've got over here. Let's take a look. So, I'm not sure if you can see from there, but mine are not quite at soft peaks yet. So I'm going to do, well actually, I'm first going to do a little scrape down with my spatula to make sure it's all getting in contact with the butterfly whisk and the blades. And then I'm going to go for another 15 seconds. And I think that will take us there. It is vitally important that your egg whites are at the soft peak stage, because we're going to be incorporating them into the heavier yolk mixture later on, and that's what's going to give the blinis a lovely fluffy texture that you would expect from a blini, and which we're not going to get naturally because we're not using any raising agent and we're using rice flour. Great, we're there. So butterfly whisk out, and using a slightly more flexible spatula, only because I don't have much mix in here, so it's quite hard to get it out. So, right, that's out. And those can just sit aside for a second. And now we're going to go in with our egg yolk, singular for me, double if you're doing the full recipe. Get every drop out. You might not think those little scraps at the bottom of your bowl make much difference, but especially with baking they do, because it is more of a science than an art. So do actually get every drop out. And then we've got creme fraiche. Again, a half recipe, so I'm going to do 15 grams of creme fraiche. Great. And we're going to do 15 grams of milk, whole milk always for baking. That's where you get the richness of flavor. There we go. And I think we still need to add in salt and pepper at this stage, because remember we did not season our parsnip in the beginning. So dash of pepper, black pepper, and a sprinkle of salt. And we're now going to mix that. Ooh, almost forgot my rice flour, rookie error. So rice flour, again, very easily available at most shops these days. If for some reason you don't want to use rice flour, you could use plain flour in its place here, or another flour variation that you're happier with. So, 1 tablespoon of rice flour for the half recipe. And now we're ready to combine these 30 seconds at speed 3. Now, what's important with this is to just use your judgment, because you always want a blini mixture to be pourable. It shouldn't be too thick, nice and smooth, easy to pour into a pan, but not so liquid that it's going to become a crepe in your pan. So you can actually just put those together for a couple of seconds until they're just combined. And then we're going to go in with our parsnip puree, which is what I showed you earlier on. And this is 200 grams as opposed to 400. So that's going to go in. And at this stage, looking at it, I think it might be a bit thick, but that's why I've still got some milk to hand in case I do need to thin it out a bit. So continue, speed 3. Right, so we have our egg whites ready to go. We have a larger bowl. And what you're going to want here, most importantly, is a large metal spoon. I'm specifying a large metal spoon because correct folding technique is important here to get a lovely, light, airy mixture. And a metal spoon is the best way to get that. So immediately, I can see that this is probably a bit too thick for what I want. So I'm going to add in a little bit more milk. Not much, probably about 2 tablespoons maximum, but starting with 1. As I said, you can always add more, but you can't take it away. So speed 3 again. And I'm going to keep making small additions until it's a pourable consistency. You want to add any extra liquid at this stage and not once you've incorporated your egg whites, because otherwise you're just going to knock out all of the air. Let's see where we're at now. Yeah, that's about pourable consistency. So we'll get that out into our larger bowl. Another festive addition to my kitchen, this bright red bowl. And again, making sure that you get every bit out of your mixing bowl. And now, folding. So, when folding anything into anything, you always have your sacrificial spoon. That's like the willing sacrifice that goes in first, and it's usually a small amount of the mixture, maybe a teaspoon, tablespoon in this case, it's going to go straight in, and that you are going to beat in quite vigorously with your metal spoon. So that first sacrificial spoon goes in, then we add in the rest of the egg whites, and this is where you apply a gentler approach because you don't want to knock all of the air out. So you're looking for a figure of 8 scooping motion, cutting through the center and then scooping around. So you're just very gently incorporating the whites into the yolk mixture. Exactly. And don't be tempted to over-mix it because it can become quite therapeutic and you want to carry on, but don't. That's pretty much where you want to leave it. And due to our unfortunate time constraints this evening, I am not going to show you how to fry these live, but some key points. Make sure that your pan is very hot and make sure you have an equal blend of oil and butter in the pan. Pro tip, having some oil in the pan with your butter ensures that your butter won't burn. It'll be a lovely even distribution of fats, and once it's bubbling and hot, that's when you drop in about tablespoon measures of your mixture, and they should bubble almost immediately if your pan is hot enough. Don't be tempted to put the heat on too high though. Keep it at a nice medium heat so that they don't over brown, and flip them over after about a minute. A good idea is try to tease the edge of the blini, and if it lifts up easily from the base of the pan, you're ready to flip. Otherwise, give it a couple more seconds. But here are some that I made earlier today. And now we're going to get to the fun part, the dressing. These are my honeyed walnuts. A few things about these. First of all, always toast your nuts. It is vitally important because that's how you release the flavor. And then when you're trying to baste nuts in honey, make sure that you heat the honey up until it's lovely and liquid, and then spoon it over gently. So I've got my Stilton cheese here. I'm crumbling a little bit of Stilton onto each. Stilton, obviously quite a strong flavor, so don't go overboard because the parsnip blinis have quite a delicate flavor. Perfect. Another thing, once you've liberally basted your nuts in honey, let them cool completely before using. I'm just going to put one on each. They are quite sweet, so again, moderation. And Rhiannon will once again be coming in as our willing taster. You could always garnish these with a little bit of chopped chives for some greenery.
You have the best job here.
Yes, have you grabbed your fork?
You look amazing. I've never got today. I didn't know that about folding. I think I have
Yeah,
a tendency to just
folding
overwhelm.
techniques are underrated. No pressure. Yeah? Great. So yeah, it's a lovely vegetarian option for your Christmas canapes. I need to show you these a little closer. Ooh, and a straight away disaster, but you get the general idea. Lovely bite-sized canapes, much needed after two very strong Christmas cocktails. And finally, one of my favorite Christmas canapé recipes, crab croquettes with romesco dipping sauce. So, let's get all our ingredients ready to go, spread out in front of us. Don't be overwhelmed with the sheer volume of ingredients. They do all disappear quite quickly and easily. Right, so my parsnip over here is going to go onto the back to be blitzed up later. And we're going to start a fresh new mixing bowl. Right, so chopping board, nice sharp knife. Right, so croquettes. Essentially a delicious deep fried breaded molten ball of delight. So these are crab and they have a lovely smoky deep flavor from the crab, but it's not overwhelming at all. So if you do have crab averse people in your family or friendship circle, they should be perfectly comfortable with these as well. They do have more than enough cheese and bread and deep fried deliciousness to counteract the crab. Right, so first things first, we're going to make some breadcrumbs. Could not be simpler with Thermomix. So I've got 2 slices of bread, 100 grams. Just roughly broken up into pieces. Probably 2 or 3 day old bread is actually ideal for this. So if you do have a bit of stale bread going, even if it's not for this recipe, always worthwhile to blitz them up in your Thermomix, and you can even freeze them in batches to use in recipes in the future. So we're going to do those for 8 seconds. Speed 10, loud. There we go. And we're going to decant those into a little bowl for now. Those are going to be for breading our croquettes later. So all of that's out. Another tip, if you do have any mixture stuck in the bottom of your bowl, it's always worthwhile to grab the base of the mixing blades, give them a twirl, and that should dislodge anything that's stuck in there. So putting those aside for now, and now integrating our Parmesan. 70 grams of Parmesan going in. And this is the easiest way to grate Parmesan I've ever discovered, especially large volumes. Again, you can blitz up a whole block of Parmesan, freeze it in batches, and have it ready to go for pasta at the drop of a hat. So that's going to go in, and we're going to get that going for 10 seconds, again on speed 10. This is going to be incredibly loud, fair warning. And that should do the trick. And again, those are going to go into their own bowl for later. I do see everyone leaving some lovely comments. I'm obviously very involved in my Christmas cooking, but I will try in a minute to get around to answering some questions. But hello for now, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you're starting to feel festive. Right, onto our base for our crab mixture. So you're going to need 1 shallot, which is over here. We're going to cut that in half. So with Thermomix, you always quarter onions and halve shallots. So 60 grams of shallots will roughly be 1 small shallot, or medium probably. And shallots bring a softer flavor to any recipes where you would usually use an onion. Onions bring a slightly harsher flavor. So if you want any kind of delicate flavor that's not going to overwhelm a delicate ingredient like crab, shallots are your go-to. But if you're making a hearty, beefy mushroom pasta sauce, go wild with your onions. So 1 shallot in there. Another Christmas tip, clean as you go. The less cleanup for after the feast, the better. So shallot in, and now roasted garlic. A revelation. If you have not discovered roasted garlic yet, allow me to introduce you. It brings a really deep, nutty flavor to otherwise good but not great garlic. Essentially, you just take the whole clove, skin and all, pop them onto an oven tray and roast them long and slow at about 160 degrees until they're really soft. You can do this in bulk, cool them down, and use them for up to a week if you keep them in the fridge. And they bring such a smoky depth to any recipe you use them in. I could not recommend them highly enough. So 2 of those. Those are going in. And we're going to put in a bit of olive oil and a bit of butter. You can just use olive oil or just use butter. I like a bit of both. If you're using just butter, you'll use about 60 grams. Again, don't skimp out. This is what brings all the flavor. Again, not seasoning at this stage because we're going to bring in a lot of flavor later on. So these are going to be blitzed up for 5 seconds at speed 6. And then we're going to saute them for 3 minutes at 100 degrees. Speed 1. So while that's cooking, I thought I would chat to you a bit about our Christmas charity initiative, which is to raise £1,000 for 4 wonderful charities that work in both the UK and Ireland. The one that I want to talk to you about today is Age UK. Age UK is a wonderful charity that reaches out to the elderly in need who might need advice, companionship, care, or assistance in any part of their lives. Christmas might be the happiest time of year for all of us, well, for many of us, but for many elderly people in the UK, it is the loneliest time of the year. It's a time of year that is full of painful memories of times of happier Christmases, and they might find themselves feeling even more isolated and lonely this year with everything that's happened with the pandemic. We would love you to donate so that Age UK can reach out to the elderly this Christmas and offer a shoulder to cry on or an ear to laugh in, and they are doing their best to phone elderly people every week and to form a one-on-one friendship with them so that they have someone they can talk to during the festive season. If you'd like to donate, please look at the links underneath the video and in the description on YouTube underneath, and then on Linktree on Instagram. We are aiming to raise £1,000 for Age UK, but I have recently heard that we're nearing that target already, which is absolutely wonderful. However, you can never donate too much to such a worthy cause, so please do go ahead and donate if you can. Or if you'd like to, you can look into some of our other charities that we're going to be donating to over the course of this Christmas cooking series, including the Tussle Trust, RSPCA, and what's the other one? Focus Island, sorry. They're all amazing causes and would appreciate your support this festive season. Right, so I think our onions are about ready to go. They smell lovely and fragrant and they look very buttery, which is exactly what you want. And now we're essentially going to make a roux base to make a white sauce. Grab a clean spoon. So we're going in with 90 grams of plain flour this time. If you did want to make these gluten-free, you would need to use gluten-free bread for the breadcrumbs and your gluten-free flour of choice. And when it comes to croquettes, they're incredibly versatile. So they don't need to be filled with seafood or meat. They could just be lovely balls of molten cheese. Though I wouldn't say that they're necessarily appropriate for vegans, but for that, we have plenty of lovely recipes on Cookie Doo that will please any fussy vegan, don't worry. Okay, mustard powder, 1 teaspoon. And 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. I did, just to be honest, up my amount of mustard powder in this because I think mustard powder really balances out the creamy richness of this filling. But if you're not a big mustard fan, keep it to 1/2 teaspoon as recommended in the recipe. Technically, you're only going to need cayenne pepper, but I also put in a tiny bit of paprika. And then salt and pepper. Just a nice healthy pinch of each should be absolutely fine here. I'm really enjoying this Christmas music, as is everyone in the background, bopping along. Usually this would be far too early for me to be listening to Christmas music. 1st of December is my general rule, but I think given the current circumstances, we all deserve to get festive a bit earlier. Right, so again, 3 minutes. I might not take it all the way there, just because of our time constraints, but 3 minutes, 120 degrees on speed 2. And while that's going, I'm going to make our romesco sauce. If I can set up a clean mixing bowl. Gosh, the help. I have to speak to Santa about these elves. Now's actually a good time to answer some questions, if I can.
Do you want me to read them out?
Yes, Raquel, read me some questions.
Okay, so the first one we've got is from Madeline. Could you use smoked salmon as a crab substitute?
I wouldn't use smoked salmon for these because they are going to be deep fried and you're actually going to lose the lovely delicate flavor of smoked salmon. I would use hot smoked salmon, which you can break down into flakes and put that through the mixture, and I think it would work really well. And then in place of chives, which are going to go in soon, I would recommend using dill.
Lovely. The next question is from Elizabeth. Can you remind us of the temperature and time for roasting garlic cloves, and do you peel the garlic cloves?
Don't peel them. You can actually roast the whole bulb. That's the best way to do it in bulk. So if you get a whole bulb of garlic, pop it onto a baking tray, into the oven at 160 degrees, and just leave them. Don't put a timer on. Just check on them every 15 minutes or so. And once they go a little bit brown on the outside and feel really squidgy, they're ready to go.
And then a lot of people are just wanting to know where they can find the recipes. So can you just repeat that?
Yes, so all of these recipes can be found on Cookie Do, and there are links below this video where you can find them as well. And of course, any questions you have, you can always pop us an email and we'll do our best to answer you as quickly as possible. Is that it for questions for now?
I think for now.
Fab. So, my elf helper has made the magical clean mixing bowl appear. I'm just missing the lid. Measuring cup. I'll forgive her, it's her first time. Next session I'll have to be a bit more brutal. So, romesco sauce. Another one that has plenty of substitutions that you can use. For one thing, very importantly, is for those who might have a nut allergy but do want to enjoy this romesco sauce, you can do it, but use pumpkin or sunflower seeds instead. I would definitely recommend roasting your seeds first for a deeper flavor, and you will get a similar kind of nutty texture and earthiness. So, turning on my second Thermomix and going down to the romesco sauce. Right, so hazelnuts are what I'm using now, but you could use almonds and they would bring an equally lovely flavor and texture. Obviously, toast them first, and we're going to go in with 75 grams of the almonds, hazelnuts. Okay, that's actually a little bit too many. I'm going to take a few out. Great. So 75 of the hazelnuts. And then we're going to go in with more of the magical roast garlic. So 2 more cloves of that going in. You could quite honestly just smoosh this onto some toast if you weren't planning to kiss anyone under the mistletoe. And it would make a delicious solitary feast. Something my dad would definitely go for. Growing up, I just so remember everything had extra garlic. Okay, preserved roasted red peppers, the key ingredient in a romesco sauce. If I can open the jar. Could you maybe try give that a go for me? Oh, we're passing it around the room. Who's it going to be? Raquel. Raquel's the winner. Any jars you can't open, send them her way. So 250 grams of roasted red peppers are going in here. If you do want to roast these yourself, could not be simpler. In fact, I would just take the whole red pepper, pop it into the oven at about 170 degrees on a baking tray, and leave it until it's completely black and blistered on the outside and almost collapsed in on itself. That's how you know that they're ready. And then another pro tip, pop those roasted peppers whole into a Ziploc bag and leave them in there until they're cool. It'll just make them a lot easier to peel. So that's 250 grams of red pepper. Give my hands a bit of a wipe. And olive oil. Where's my olive oil gone? Okay. Okay. Oh, got it. So 20 grams of olive oil.